What's good, folks? Thanks for joining me for episode 7 of the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast, bringing you new hip hop releases and hip hop news every week. Shout out to Bone Thugs and Harmony for an outstanding performance at this last week's Verzuz, pitting them against 3-6 Mafia. Bone Thugs is one of my favorite groups all time. I grew up on Bone Thugs. I was on Mo Thugs. So to recap the event, to start, 3-6 Mafia had the upper hand. They were doing pretty good out of the gates. But around halfway through the show, Bone's experience and longevity really just started to shine through. And by the time they got to Busy performing his verses on Thug Love and Notorious Thugs, it was pretty much all over for 3-6 at that point. And so everybody knows about the beef that happened up on the stage when Busy Bone threw a water bottle at 3-6, and there was a real quick tussle. Fortunately, it ended in positivity. At the end of the event, everybody was on the same page and there to have a good time and wrap the show up safely. And it ended up just being a really good Verzuz. The last one that I saw that was this good was definitely that Lox versus Dipset. But yeah, if you missed it, you can go on to YouTube right now and catch the replay. I definitely recommend it. And especially if you're a Bone fan like I am. Now, first up, I want to make sure Humboldt locals know about a few new drops. This is important to make sure you follow actual hip hop in Humboldt County, California, right? We have to keep the culture alive, okay? And doing that is a few artists that I have a lot of respect for. First up, Attribute. Okay, he just dropped a new track featuring Lazy Bone, Sloan Bone, Robin Raynell, and we got JX on the beat. Shout out to Bone and that Verzuz that we just talked about, right? But yeah, I need to make sure that you go and follow Attribute right now on Instagram at Attribute718. Then you go to Attribute's Instagram profile and you check out his link tree and you can get all of his links. You need to go check out his YouTube and subscribe to his YouTube and check out this new track, and it's called Back Then. And I really enjoyed this track. I think you need to put it on your playlist. Shout out to Attribute for keeping hip hop alive in Humboldt. Next up, we've got a drop that I have already talked about and I can't talk about enough. And I'm talking none other than Flo J Simpson's new release, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay? If you haven't already went and followed him on Instagram, you need to do that right now at Flo J Did It. Now, Flo J is all about the bars, and I'm talking about off the top, okay? So I am just in awe at what this project is actually bringing to the hip-hop community in Humboldt County. It's raising the bar, it's setting a new standard, it's unique, and you need to cop it. And shout out to Flo J for keeping Humboldt hip-hop alive. Now, next up, we got an artist I got a lot of respect for. I'm talking about Nac One. He's Humboldt local, and he's bringing you dope music month after month after month. This latest couple of tracks is under his Vernacular group. Vernacular being Nac One and his son on the production. His son is called Exclusive Beats. You want to make sure you check out these Vernacular tracks. I talked about Prelude to Vision in one of my recent podcasts. That's a track that Vernacular just dropped. And since they've dropped another one, it's called Resilient. And it's featuring Mike Anthony. That's one of Nac One's sons that's been doing it for almost 20 years. And I got respect when somebody's putting their sons on, their daughters on, teaching them the culture, letting them know that they can do the same things that they see other people out there doing. Shout out to Nac One. I need you to go listen to these tracks right now, and you can find the links in Nac One's Instagram. Shout out to Nac One for keeping hip-hop Humboldt alive. Next up, I want to make sure my Humboldt locals know about an event that's coming up on December 10th. I'm talking about the Focus Water event. This is hydration and focus in a bottle. Okay, this event is benefiting Humboldt County youth sports programs, and you want to check it out. You want to support. This is happening at 8 o'clock at the Siren Song on December 10th. All right, that's Friday, 8 o'clock. We're talking about a show that's going to include Rock Slang, Travie Bands, Two Tank, Highway, Dre, DVSD, Primo, and we got a special guest on that one, Bird Paw. That's going to be a really dope show. We got DJ Chuck Angel spinning on the ones and twos. Make sure you support it and check out Two Tank on Instagram. That's at Two Tank _1. That's where you're going to find Two Tank, and you're going to be able to keep up on a lot of hip hop events in Humboldt. Shout out to Two Tank. For new albums this week, I've got 3 picks that I think you need to listen to. First up is a collaboration between 2 of my all-time favorite artists. I'm talking about 1/3 of the Locks, none other than the Ghost, Styles P. And he's teamed up with 1/2 of Mobb Deep. And that's obviously got to be the one remaining member, Havoc. So we got Havoc producing every single track on this Wreckage Manner collaboration album between him and Styles P. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this album. Styles P has been consistent the last few years, and he's been releasing some really solid albums. And I mean, you gotta assume you put somebody like Styles P on Havoc beats, and it's gonna be a real problem. And that's what this Wreckage Manner album is. Shout out to Havoc for staying up on the new wave. We all know him from Mobb Deep, but he's still out there producing, and I wouldn't underestimate him. The tracks I enjoy from the album included Fiend 4, 21 Gun Salute, Havoc and the Ghost, Good as Gold, and that Nightmares to Dreams single that they already released has a video on YouTube, and you're going to want to check that out. All in all, I can't say that I found a track that I disliked on this album, and it's 30 minutes, 10 tracks, it's 30 minutes well spent. Next up, we've got a new album from Berner. If you know Berner, he's been on the scene for a few years now. Came out with Wiz Khalifa. He was Wiz Khalifa's plug, right? And his music is for the smokers, and I think he's been pretty consistent as well the last few years. Speaking of consistent, Berner, also did an album a few years ago, believe that was 2018, with Styles P. And that album was some fire. It's highly recommended. But to be real honest about this new Berner album, I want to say that it blows all of his previous albums out of the park. The feature list on this album is star-studded. I'm talking about, we've got Future, Rick Ross, Jadakiss, Nas, Rod Wave, Mozzie, Conway the Machine from Griselda, Ty Dolla $ign, Millie's, Wiz Khalifa, of course. We got some Janelle Marie on there, and a lot of John Gotti. And I mean, out of that feature list, 2 of the tracks has the majority of those features. I'm talking this track, Too Many Goats, featuring Jadakiss, Rick Ross, and Nas. You really can't have more goats than that on a track, honestly. For the other track, we've got Mozzie and Conway the Machine coming in for a track called Pound for Pound. And between those 2 tracks, Too Many Goats and Pound for Pound, I can't call which one I like better because I like them both a lot. And I want to give a special shout out to Berner. If you follow Berner on any of the socials, you will probably know that he was recently diagnosed with cancer. I've lost people in my family to cancer. I know what it's like. Shout out to Berner for showing strength and inspiring a lot of people around him to continue to fight. He's standing upright, taking it head on, still living his life, making sure that he's pacing himself, caring about himself in the process to get through this cancer situation. So shout out to Berner. Now, last but definitely not least, we've got one of my favorite underground rappers by the name of Mach Hommy releasing an album called Balin's Cho. And this album first dropped on Apple Music, then came to Spotify the following day. And I'm telling you, Mach Hommy is an artist you're going to want to check out because his pen game is a problem. Thing about Mach Hommy is that he's producing on this album, he's writing on this album, and of course he's rapping on this album. We also see one of my favorite up-and-coming producers right now, Nick Craven, writing and producing for Balin's Cho. You know, Mach Hommy is from Jersey, and he's always had these French Caribbean vibes in his music because he's actually Haitian, and a lot of people don't know that. But it becomes evident when you look at the names of the tracks on some of this Balin's Cho album. There's a succession. The album starts with La Première Bougie. Later on, he's got a track called La Deuxième. Then he's got La Troisième, La Quatrième, La Cinquième. He goes in a succession, and by the end of the album, when he gets to the last track, Self-Love, his pen game is off the charts, and he's just going in where practically every bar is quotable on that track. Shout out to Mach Hommy. He has been coming up every single year more and more, and I am pleased to see it. Make sure you check out this Balin's Cho album on your favorite DSP. To look ahead at new albums coming out on the horizon. This upcoming week, we're going to have 2 huge releases, and I'm talking about a new album from Juice WRLD called Fighting Demons. Now, this is his second posthumous album after his Legends Never Die album that released last year. And I'm looking forward to this. You know, I think he was taken before his time, and I really encourage you to check out this new album. The first track that he released on the album, Wandering in LA, was solid. I can't say I like the Justin Bieber feature, but it is what it is. Next up, we got a heavy hitter, and I'm talking none other than Rick Ross, Teflon Don, with a new album coming out. He just released a single off this album with 21 Savage and Jasmine Sullivan called Outlaws. I talked about that in a recent podcast, and now it's time for the whole album to drop come this Friday. I see he's got a track on there featuring Benny the Butcher. Shout out to Benny and Griselda. The album is not heavy in terms of star-studded features, so it's going to be an interesting offering. I'm going to have to check the whole thing out before I give you any recommendations from it, but I definitely like the single that they've already dropped from the album. Shout out to Rick Ross and Maybach Music. Don't forget, later this month, we've got Che Noir dropping her second album that she's executive produced. She's one of the dopest new MCs out, and I highly recommend you check that Food for Thought album out when it comes out December 17th. Shout out to 38 Special and Trust Gang for bringing us Che Noir. Last thing I wanted to add, I'm really anticipating a new album from Kendrick, but I can't say that it's going to drop this month. It's going to be interesting. If it doesn't drop in December, it's going to change the landscape for 2022. I want to say by the end of 2022, people may have forgotten the Kendrick album if he drops it too early in the year, but we're going to have to see how it goes. Is it going to drop on Top Dog? Is it going to drop on a different label? Is it going to come out on PG Lang? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. As always, thanks for tuning in, folks. I really appreciate your time. If you want to keep up on new hip-hop releases and other hip-hop news, what's going on in the culture, what's going on locally with hip-hop in Humboldt County, make sure you check out the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. You can find this podcast on all of your podcast discovery platforms, including Spotify, Google, Apple, Breaker, and others. Just search Hip Hop Humboldt. You can also follow me on all the socials at Hip Hop Humboldt. I appreciate you. Thanks so much. Till next time.